bronze gazed far sideways. Mirror there. Is the best side of her face. They always know. Knock at the door. Last tip to debate. Quascara cara. What do they think when they hear music? Way to catch rattlesnakes. Night Michael Gunn gave us the box. Tuning up. Shaw of Persia liked the best. Remind him of home sweet home. Wiped his nose and curtain too. Custom his country perhaps. That's music too. Not as bad as it sounds. Tootling. Brasses braying asses through up rungs. Doubly basses helpless, gashes in their sides. Woodwinds moving cows. Simmer grand open crocodile music hath jaws. Woodwind like Goodwin's name. She looked fine. Her crocus dress she wore low cut, belongings on show. Clove her breath was always in theater when she bent to ask a question. Told her what Spinoza says in that book of poor papas. Hypnotized, listening. Eyes like that. She bet. Chap in dress circle staring down into her with his opera glass for all he was worth. Beauty of music he must hear twice. Nature woman have to look. God made the countryman to tune. Met him pike hoses. Philosophy. Oh rocks. All gone. All fallen. At the siege of Ross his father, at Gowrie all his brothers fell. To Wexford, we are the boys of Wexford, he would. Last of his name and race. I too. Last of my race. Mel the young student. Well, my fault perhaps. No son. Rudy. Too late now. Or if not. If not. If still. He born of hate. Hate. Love. Those are names. Rudy. Soon I am old. Big Ben his voice unfolded. Great voice Richie Goulding said, a flush struggling in his pale, to bloom soon old. But when was young. Ireland comes now. My country above the king. She listens. Who fears to speak of 1904. Time to be shoving. Look enough. Bless me, Father, dollar the croppy cried. Bless me and let me go. Tap. Bloom looked, unblessed to go. Got up to kill, on 18 bob a week. Fellows shell out the dibs. Want to keep your wellery open. Those girls, those lovely. By the sad sea waves. Surest girls' romance. Letters read out for breach of promise. From Chuckabiddy's only Monsipum. Laughter in court. Henry. I never signed it. The lovely Naomi. Low sang the music, airing words. And hastens. The false priest rustling soldier from his castle. A yeoman captain. They know it all by heart. The thrill they inch for. Yeoman cap. Tap. Tap. Thrilled she listened, bending in sympathy to hear. Blank-faced. Virgin she'd say, or fingered only. Write something on it, page. If not, what becomes of them? Decline, despair. Keeps them young. Even admire themselves. See. Play on her. Lip blow. Body of white woman, a flute alive. Blow gentle. Loud. 30 holes, all women. God knows I didn't see. They want it. Not too much polite. That's why he gets them. Gold in your pocket, brass in your face. Say something. Make her hear. With look to look. Songs without words. Molly, that hurdy-gurdy boy. She knew he meant the monkey was sick. Or because so like the Spanish, understand animals too that way. Solomon did. Gift of nature. Ventriloquies. My lips closed. Thinking my stem. What will you? I want you to. With hoarse rude fury the yeoman cursed, swelling an apoplectic bitch's bastard. A good thought, boy, to come. 1 hour's your time to live, your last. Tap. Tap. Thrill now. Pity the feel. To wipe away a tear from martyrs that want to, dying to, die. For all things dying, for all things born. Poor Mrs. Purefoy. Hope she's over. Because their wombs. A liquidative womb of woman eyeball gazed under fence of lashes, calmly, hearing. See real beauty of the eye when she not speaks. On yonder river. At each slow satiny heaving bosom swave, her heaving and bone, red rose rose slowly sank red rose. Heartbeats, her breath, breath is life. And all the tiny fern foils trembled of maiden hair. But look. The bright stars fade. Oh Rose. Castile. The morn. Hectares. Lidwell. For him and not for. Infatuated. I like that. See her from here though. Pop corks, splashes of beer froth, stacks of empties. On the smooth jutting beer pool laid Lydia hand, lightly, plumply, leave it to my hands. All lost in pity for crappie. Fro, fro, over the polished knob, she knows his eyes, my eyes, her thumb and finger passed in pity, passed, reposed and, gently touching, then slid so smoothly, slowly down, a cool firm white enamel baton protruding through their sliding ring. With a cara. Tap. 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 I hold this house. Oh man. He gnashed in fury. Traitor swing. The chorus consented. Very sad thing. But had to be. Get out before the end. Thanks, that was heavenly. Where's my hat? Pass by her. Can leave that Freeman. Letter I have. Suppose she were the. No. Walk. La cash a bowl of carnaro colo tisla maris tisno farewell. Well, I must be. Are you up? YRFMSDBYS. Bloom stuck. Over me high blue. Oh. Bloom stood up. Soap feeling rather sticky behind. Must have sweated. Music. That lotion, remember? Well, so long. High grade. Card inside. Yes. By death path in the door was straining ear Bloom past. At Geneva Bear that young man died. At passage was his body laid. $. Oh, he Dolores. The voice of the mournful chanter called the dolorous prayer. By rose, by satiny bosom, by the fondling hand, by slopes, by empties, by pop corks, greeting and going, past eyes and maiden hair, bronze and faint golden deep sea shadow, wind bloom, soft bloom, I feel so lonely bloom. Tap. 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 Pray for him, Pray the basic dollar. You who hear in peace. Breathe a prayer, drop a tear, good men, good people. He was the crappie boy. Scaring eavesdropping boots, crappie boots, boy balloon in the arm and hallway heard the growls and roars of Bravo, fat back slapping, their boots all treading, boots not the boots the boy. General chorus off for I swill to wash it down. Glad I avoided. Come on, Ben, Simon Delos cried. By God, you're as good as ever you were. Better, said Tom Jen Kernan. Most trenchant rendition of that ballad, upon my soul and honor it is. Labledge, said Father Cowley. Ben dollared bulkily cashew cad towards the bar, mightily praised and all big Rossite, on heavy-footed feet, his gouty fingers knocker in castagnets in the air. Big Ben dollared. Big Benman. Big Benman. Arr. And the moved all, Simon trumping compassion from foghorn nose, all laughing they brought him forth, Ben dollared, in right good cheer. You were looking rubicant, George Lidwell said. Miss Deuce composed her rose to wait. Ben Macri, said Mr. Dedalus, clapping Ben's fat back shoulder blade. Fit as a fiddle, only he has a lot of adipose tissue concealed about his person. RSSS. Fat to death, Simon, Ben Dollard growled. Richie riffed in the Luke alone sat, Goulding, Collis, Ward. Uncertainly he waited. Unpaid part 2. Tap. 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 Miss Mina Kennedy brought near her lips the ear of tankard one. Mr. Dollard, they murmured low. Dollard, murmured tankard. Tank one believed, Miss Kenman that doll he was, she doll, the tank. He murmured that he knew the name. The name was familiar to him, that is to say. That was to say he had heard the name of. Dollard, was it? Dollard, yes. Yes, her lips said more loudly, Mr. Dollard. He sang that song lovely, murmured Mina. Mr. Dollard. And the last rose of summer was a lovely song. Mina loved that song. Tankard loved the song that Mina. 'Tis the last rose of summer Dollard left bloom felt wind wound around inside. Gassy thing that cider, binding to. Wait. Post office near Reuben J's 1 8pence 2. Get shut of it. Dodge around by Greek Street. Wish I hadn't promised the meat. Freer in there. Music. Gets on your nerves. Beer pool. Her hand that rocks the cradle rules of Ben Hoth. That rules the world. Far. 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 Tap. 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 Up the key went Lionel Leopold, naughty Henry with letter from Matey, with sweets of sin with frillies for all, with met him pike hoses went poldy on. Tap blind walk tapping by the tap the curbstone tapping, tap by tap. Cowley, he stuns himself with a kind of drunkenness. Better give way only halfway the way of a man with a maid. Instance enthusiast. All ears. Not lose a demi-semi-quaver. Eyes shut. Head nodding in time. Dotty. You darn single quote T-booge. Thinking straightly prohibited. Always talking shop. Fiddle-a-faddle about notes. All kind of attempt to talk. Unpleasant when it stops because you never know exact. Oregon and Gardner Street. Old Glint 50 quid a year. Queer up there in the cock loft, alone, with stops and locks and keys. Seated all day at the organ, maunder on for hours, talking to himself or the other fellow blowing the bellows. Growl angry, then shriek cursing, want to have wadding or something in his no don't she cried, then all of a soft sudden wee little pip you wind. Pwee. A wee little windpipe to eat. In Bloom's little wee. Was he? Mr. Dealis said, returning with fetched pipe. I was with him this morning at poor little Patty Digham's. Ah, the Lord have mercy on him. By the by, there's a tuning frickin' there on the tap, 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 tap. The wife has a fine voice. Or had. What? Lidwell asked. Oh, that must be the tuner, Lydia said to Simon Lionel first I saw, forgot it when he was here. Blind to it she told George Lidwell second I saw. And played so exquisitely, treat to hear. Exquisite contrast, bronzy light, moon gold. Shout. Baron Dollard shouted, pouring. Sing out. Dash low. Cried Father Cowley. Arr, 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 arr. I feel I want. Tap. 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 Tap very, Mr. Dealis said, staring hard at a headless sardine. Under the sandwich lay on the bier of bread one lonely, last sardine of summer. Bloom alone. Very, he stared. The lower register, for choice. Tap. 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 Bloom went by berries. Wish I could. Wait. That wonder worker if I had 20 for solicitors in that one house. Counted them. Litigation. Love one another. Piles of parchment. Messrs. Pick and Pocket have power of attorney. Goulding, Collis, Ward. But for example the chap that wallops the big drum. His vocation, Macarooni's band. Wonder how it first struck him. Sitting at home after pig's cheek and cabbage nursing and in the armchair. Rehearsing his band part. Pom. Pompity. Jolly for the wife. Ass's skins. Welted through life, then walloped after death. Pom. Waller. Seems to be what you call Yaushmaker Amen Kismet. Fate. Tap. Tap. A stripling, blind, with a tapping cane came tapping by Daly's window where a mermaid hair all streaming, but he couldn't see blue weaves of a mermaid. Blind couldn't, mermaid, coolest whiff of all. Instruments. The blade of grass, shell of her hands. Then blow. Even comb and tissue paper you can knock a tune out of. Molly in her shift in Lombard Street West, hair down. I suppose each kind of trade made its own, don't you see? Hunter with the horn. Haw. Have you the cloaky? Son his law. Shepherd his pipe. Point little wee. Policeman and whistle. Locks and keys. Sweet. 4 o'clock salts well. Sleep. All is lost now. Drum. Pompity. Wait. I know. Town crier, bum bailiff. Long John. Waken the dead. Pom. Dignan. Poor little Nominadomin. Pom. It is music. I mean, of course, it's all a pom, very much what they call da capo. Still you can hear. As we march along, pom. I must really. FFF. Now if I did that at a banquet. Just a question of custom Shah of Persia. Breathe a prayer, drop a tear. All the same he must have been a bit of a natural not to see it was a yeoman cap. Muffled up. Wonder who was that chap at the grave in the brown machine. Oh, the horror of the lane. A frozen horror with black straw sailor hat askew came glazily in the day along the quay towards Mr. Bloom. When first he saw that form endearing. Yes, it is. I feel so lonely. Midnight in the lane. Horror. Who had the he-haw saw. Off her beat here. What is she? Hope she. PSSD. Any chance of your watch? New Molly. Had me decked. Stout lady does be with you in the brown costume. Put you off your stroke, that. Appointment we made knowing we'd never, well hardly ever. Too near to home sweet home. Sees me, does she? Looks a frightened day. Face like dip. Damn her. Oh, well, she has to live like the rest. Look in here. In Lionel Marx's antique celeste shop window haughty Henry Lionel Leopold dear Henry Flower earnestly Mr. Leopold Bloom envisaged battered candlesticks melodeon oozing maggoty blow bags. Bargain, 6 bob. Might learn to play. Cheap. Let her pass. Course everything is dear if you don't want it. That's what good salesman is. Make you buy what he wants to sell. Chap sold me the Swedish razor he shaved me with. Wanted to charge him for the edge he gave it. She's passing now. 6 bob. Must be the cider or perhaps the Bergen. Near bronze from the near gold from the far that chink their clinking glasses all, bright-eyed and gallant, before bronze Lydia's tempting last rose of summer, rose of Castile. First lid, cow, cur, doll, a 5th, Lidwell, C. Daedalus, Bomb Cali, Kernan and Big Ben Dollard. Tap. A youth entered a lonely ornament hall. Bloom viewed a gallant pictured hero in Lionel Marx's window. Robert Emmett's last words. 7 last words. Admire Bearnatus. True men like you men. Ah, hey, Ben. We'll lift your glass with us. They lifted. Chink. Chunk. Tip. An unseeing stripling stood in the door. He saw not bronze. He saw not gold. No Ben, no Bob, no Tom, no C, nor George, no Tanks, no Richie, nor Pat. He. He did not see. So Bloom, Grease Bloom viewed last words. Softly. When my country takes her place among PRR, must be the bird. FFF. Oh. RRPR. Nations of the earth. No one behind. She's past. Then and not till then. Tram crane. Good o' poor. Coming. Crandall crankrin. I'm sure it's the Bergen. Yes. 1, 2. Let my epitaph be. Craw. Written. I have. PPRRPFFRRPPFFFF. Done. I was just passing the time of day with old Troy the DMP at the corner of Arbor Hill there, and be damned but a bloody sweep came along and he near drove his gear into my eye. I turned around to let him have the weight of my tongue when who should I see dodging along Stony Batter only Joe Hines. "Lo, Joe," says I, "how are you blowing? Did you see that bloody chimney sweep near shelled my eye out with his brush?" "So it's luck," says Joe. "Who's the old ballocks you were talking to?" "Old Troy," says I, "was in the force. I'm on two minds not to give that fellow in charge for obstructing the thoroughfare with his brooms and ladders." "What are you doing around those parts?" says Joe. "Devil a much," says I. "There's a bloody big foxy thief beyond by the garrison church at the corner of Chicken Lane. Old Troy was just giving me a wrinkle about him lifted any god's quantity of tea and sugar to pay $3 a week. Said he had a farm in the county down off a hop of my thumb by the name of Moses Herzog over there near Haighesbury Street." "Circumcised?" says Joe. "Ah," says I, a bit off the top. "An old plumber named Jerry. I'm hanging on to his taw now for the past fortnight and I can't get a penny out of him." "That the lady you're on now?" says Joe. "Ah," says I, "how are the mighty fallen? Collector of bad and doubtful debts. But that's the most notorious bloody robber you'd meet in a day's walk. In the face on him all pockmarks would hold a shower of rain. Tell him," says he, "I dare him," says he, "and I double dare him to send you round here again, or if he does," says he, "I'll have him summoned up before the court, so I will, for trading without a license." And he after stuffing himself till he's fit to burst. Jesus, I had to laugh at the little Jewy getting his shirt out. He drink me my teas. He eat me my sugars. Because he no pay me my monies. For non-perishable goods bought of Moses Herzog, of 13 St. Kevin's Parade in the city of Dublin, Woodkey Ward, merchant, herein after called the vendor, and sold and delivered to Michael E. Jarity, Esquire, of 29 Arbor Hill in the city of Dublin, Aaron Q. Ward, gentleman, herein after called the purchaser, Vigilacet, £5 of Voyardibus of first choice tea at 3 shillings and no pence per pound of Voyardibus and 3 stone of Voyardibus of sugar, crushed crystal, at 3 pence per pound of Voyardibus. The said purchaser debtor to the said vendor of £1 5 shillings and 6 pence sterling for value received, which amount shall be paid by said purchaser to said vendor in weekly installments every 7 calendar days of 3 shillings and no pence sterling, and the said non-perishable goods shall not be plundered, pledged, or sold or otherwise alienated by the said purchaser, but shall be and remain and be held to be the sole and exclusive property of the said vendor, to be disposed of at his good will and pleasure until the said amount shall have been duly paid by the said purchaser to the said vendor in the manner herein set forth as this day hereby agreed between the said vendor, his heirs, successors, trustees and assigns of the one part, and the said purchaser, his heirs, successors, trustees and assigns of the other part. Are you a strict TT? Says Joe. Not taking anything between drinks, says I. What about paying our respects to our friend? Says Joe. Who? Says I. Sure, he's out in John of God's off his head, poor man. Drinking his own stuff? Says Joe. Ah, says I. Whiskey and water on the brain. Come around to Barney Kiernan's, says Joe. I want to see the citizen. Barney Mavernines be, says I. Anything strange or wonderful, Joe? Not a word, says Joe. I was up at that meeting in the City Arms. Dash, what was that, Joe? Says I. Cattle traders, says Joe, about the foot and mouth disease. I want to give the citizen a hard word about it. So we went around by the Linen Hill barracks in the back of the courthouse talking of one thing or another. Decent fellow Joe when he has it, but sure like that he never has it. Jesus, I couldn't get over that bloody foxy Jerry, the daylight robber, for trading without a license, says he. And in his failed affair the lies land, the land of holy mission. Their eyes as a watchtower beheld the men afar. Their sleep the mighty dead as in life they slept, warriors and princes of high renown. A pleasant land it is in sooth of murmuring waters, fishful streams where sport the gurnard, the plaice, the roach, the halibut, the jibe haddock, the grills, the dab, the brill, the flounder, the pollock, the mixed coarse fish generally and other denizens of the aqueous kingdom too numerous to be enumerated. In the mild breezes of the west and of the east the lofty trees wave in different directions their first-class foliage, the wafty sycamore, the Lebanonian cedar, the exalted planetary, the eugenic eucalyptus and other ornaments of the arboreal world with which that region is thoroughly well supplied. Lovely maidens sit in close proximity to the roots of the lovely trees singing the most lovely songs while they play with all kinds of lovely objects as for example golden ingots, silvery fishes, crayons of herrings, drafts of eels, codlings, creels of fingerlings, purple sedums and playful insects. And heroes voyage from afar to woo them, from Eblina to Sleary Margie, the peerless princes of unfettered Munster and of Connaught the Justin and of smooth sleek Leinster and of Crewe-Hens land and of Armagh the splendid and of the noble district of Boyle, princes, the sons of kings. And the rises a shining palace whose crystal glittering roof is seen by mariners who traverse the extensive sea in barks built expressly for that purpose. And thither come all herds and fatlings and first fruits of that land from Conall Fitzsimon takes toll of them, a chieftain descended from chieftains. Thither the extremely large wains bring foys into the fields, flaskets of cauliflowers, floats of spinach, pineapple chunks, rangoon beans, strikes of tomatoes, drums of figs, drills of sweets, spherical potatoes and tallies of iridescent kale, York and Savoy, and trays of onions, pearls of the earth, and punnets of mushrooms and custard marrows and fat wretches and beer and rape and red green yellow brown russet sweet big bitter ripe pomelated apples and chips of strawberries and sieves of gooseberries, pulpy and pelurious, and strawberries fit for princes and raspberries from their canes. I dare him, says he, and I double dare him. Come out here, Jerry, you notorious bloody hell and dale robber. And by that way went the herds innumerable of bellwethers and flushies and shrilling rams and lambs and stubble geese and medium steers and roaring mares and polled calves and longwoods and surrey sheep and cuffs prime springers and culls and soap pigs and bacone hogs and the various different varieties of highly distinguished swine and Angus heifers and polly bullocks of immaculate pedigree together with prime premiated milch cows and beeves, and there's ever heard the trampling, cackling, roaring, lowing, bleating, bellowing, rumbling, grunting, champing, chewing, of sheep and pigs and heavy-hooved kin from pasture elands of Lusk and Russian Carrickmans and from the streamer vales at Thomond, from the Imgillicuddy's reeks the inaccessible and lordly Shannon the unfathomable, and from the general declivities of the place of the race of Cure, their udders distended with superabundance of milk and butts of butter and rennets of cheese and farmers' firkins and targets of lamb and cranlocks of corn and oblong eggs and great hundreds, various in size, the agate with this done. So we turned into Barney Kiernan's and there, sure enough, was the citizen up in the corner having a great confab with himself and that bloody mangy mongrel, Griowood, and he waiting for what the sky would drop in the way of drink. There he is, says I, in his glory hole, with his cruiskin lawn and his loaded papers, working for the cause. The bloody mongrel let a grouse out of him would give you the creeps. Be a corporal working mercy if someone would take the life of that bloody dog. I'm told for a fact he ate a good part of the breeches off a constabulary man in Santry that came round one time with a blue paper about a license. Stand and deliver, says he. That's all right, citizen, says Joe. Friends here. Pass, friends, says he. Then he rubs his hand in his eye and says he, what's your opinion of the times? Doing the raw party and rari of the hill. But, begob, Joe was equal to the occasion. I think the markets are on the rise, says he, sliding his hand down his fork. So begob the citizen claps his paw on his knee and he says, foreign wars is the cause of it. And says Joe, sticking his thumb in his pocket, it's the Russians' wish to tyrannies. Era, give over your bloody cotting, Joe, says I have a thirst on me I wouldn't sell for half a crown. Give it a name, citizen, says Joe. Wine of the country, says he. What's yours? Says Joe. Did a Mechanispy, says I 3 pints, Terry, says Joe. And how's the old heart, citizen? Says he. Never better, a carrot, says he. What Gary? Are we going to win? Eh? And with that he took the bloody old tozer by the scruff of the neck and, by Jesus, he near throttled him. The figure seated on a large boulder at the foot of a round tower was that of a broad-shouldered, deep-chested, strong-limbed, frank-eyed, red-haired, freely freckled, shaggy-bearded, wide-mouthed, large-nosed, long-headed, deep-voiced, bar-neat, brawny-handed, hairy-legged, ruddy-faced, sinewy-armed hero. From shoulder to shoulder he measured several ells and his rock-like mountainous knees were covered, as was likewise the rest of his body wherever visible, with a strong growth of tawny prickly hair and hue and toughness similar to the mountain goers' Ulysses. The wide-winged nostrils, from which bristles of the same tawny hue projected, were of such capaciousness that within their cavernous obscurity the field lark might easily have lodged her nest. The eyes in which a tear and a smile strove ever for the mastery were of the dimensions of a good-sized cauliflower. A powerful current of warm breath issued at regular intervals from the profound cavity of his mouth, while in rhythmic resonance the loud strong hail reverberations of his formidable heart thundered rumblingly, causing the ground, the summit of the lofty tower and the still loftier walls of the cave to vibrate and tremble. He wore a long unsleeved garment of recently flayed ozide reaching to the knees and a loose kilt, and this was bound about his middle by a girdle of plaited straw and rushes. Beneath this he wore trousseau deerskin, roughly stitched with gut. His nether extremities were encased in high-boughed brigand buskins dyed inlac and purple, the feet being shod with brogues of salted cowhide laced with the windpipe of the same beast. From his girdle hung a row of sea stones which jangled at every movement of his pretentious frame, and on these were graven with rude yet striking art the tribal images of many Irish heroes and heroines of antiquity: Cuchulainn, Conn of 100 battles, Niall of 9 hostages, Brian of Kincora, the Ardry Malachi, Art McMurrough, Shane O'Neill, Father John Murphy, Owen Rowe, Patrick Sarsfield, Red Hugh O'Donnell, Red Jim McDermott, Sogarth Yoghin O'Grony, Michael Dwyer, Francie Higgins, Henry Joanne Kraken, Goliath, Horace Wheatley, Thomas Kneff, Peg Woffington, the village blacksmith, Captain Moonlight, Captain Boycott, Dante Alighieri, Christopher Columbus, S. Fursa, S. Brendan, Marshall McMahon, Charlemagne, Theobald Wolfe Tone, the mother of the Maccabees, the last of the Mohicans, the Rose of Castile, the man for Galway, the man that broke the bank at Monte Carlo, the man in the Gap, the woman who didn't, Benjamin Franklin, Napoleon Bonaparte, John L. Sullivan, Cleopatra, Salvanin Delish, Julius Caesar, Paracelsus, Sir Thomas Lipton, William Tell, Michelangelo Hayes, Muhammad, the Bride of Lammermoor, Peter the Hermit, Peter the Packer, Darker Celine, Patrick W. Shakespeare, Brian Confucius, Murdo Gutenberg, Patricio Velasquez, Captain Nemo, Tristan and Isolde, the first Prince of Wales, Thomas Cook and Son, the Bold Soldier Boy, Aaron Pope, Dick Turpin, Ludwig Beethoven, the Colleen Baum, Wadler Healy, Angus the Cully, Dolly Mount, Sydney Parade, Ben Hoth, Valentine Great Tracks, Adam and Eve, Arthur Wellesley, Boss Croker, Herodotus, Jack the Giant Killer, Gautama Buddha, Lady Godiva, the Lily of Killarney, Balor of Evil Eye, the Queen of Sheba, Aki Nagel, Joan Agel, Alessandra Volta, Jeremiah O'Donovan Rosa, Don Philip O'Sullivan Beer. A cat spear of acuminated granite rested by him while at his feet reposed a savage animal of the canine tribe, whose stertorous gasps announced that he was sunk in uneasy slumber, a supposition confirmed by hoarse growls and the spasmodic movements which his master oppressed from time to time by tranquilizing blows of a mighty cudgel rudely fashioned out of Paleolithic stone. So anyhow Terry brought the 3 pints Joe was standing and begob the sight nearly left my eyes when I saw him land out a quid as true as I'm telling ye. A good-looking sovereign. And there's more where that came from, says he. Were you robbing the poor box, Joe? Says I, sweat of my brow, says Joe. 'Twas the prudent member gave me the wheeze. I saw him before I met you, says I, sloping around Boppy Lane and Greek Street with his cod's eye counting up all the guts of the fish. Who comes through Mitchen's lion, dots and sable armor? Oh, Bloom, the son of Rory, it is he. Impervious to fear is Rory's son, he of the prudent soul. For the old woman of Prince's Street, says a citizen, the subsidized organ. The pledge bunk party on the floor of the house. And look at this blasted rag, says he. Look at this, says he. The Irish Independent, if you please, founded by Parnell to be the workingman's friend. Listen to the births and deaths in the Irish for Ireland Independent, and I'll think you in the marriages. And he starts reading them out, Gordon, Barnfield Crescent, Exeter, Redmayne of Iffley, St. Anne's-on-Sea, the wife of William T. Redmayne of her son. How's that, eh? Wright and Flynn, Vincent and Gillette Roth, the Marian daughter of Rosa and the late George Alfred Gillette, 179 Clapham Road, Stockwell, Playwood and Redsdale at St. Jude's, Kensington by the very Reverend Dr. Forrest, Dean of Worcester. Eh? That's Bristow, at Whitehall Lane, London, Carr, Stock Newington, of gastritis and heart disease, Cockburn, at the Moat House, Chepstow. I know that fellow, says Joe, from bitter experience. Cockburn. Dempsey, wife of David Dempsey, late of the Admiralty, Miller, Tottenham, aged 85, Welsh, June 12th, at 35 Canning Street, Liverpool, Isabel Helen. How's that for national press, eh, my brown son? How's that for Martin Murphy, the Bintry jobber? Ah, well, says Joe, handing round the booth. Thanks be to God they had the start of us. Drink that, citizen. I will, says he, honorable person. Health, Joe, says I, and all down the form. Ah. Oh. Don't be talking. I was blue moldy for the want of that pint. Declare to God I could hear it hit the pit of my stomach with a click. And lo, as they quaffed their cup of joy, a godlike messenger came swiftly in, radiant as the eye of heaven, a comely youth, and behind him there passed an elder of noble gait and countenance, bearing the sacred scrolls of law, and with him his lady wife, a dame of peerless lineage, fairest of her race. Little Alf Bergen popped in round the door and hid behind Barney's snug, squeezed up with the laughing. And who was sitting up there in the corner that I hadn't seen, snoring drunk blind to the world, only Bob Doran. I didn't know what was up, and Alf kept making signs out of the door. And begob what was it only that bloody old pantaloon Dennis Breen in his bath slippers with 2 bloody big books tucked under his oxter, and the wife hot foot after him, and fortunate wretched woman, trotting like a poodle. I thought Alf would split. Look at him, says he. Breen. He's traipsing around Dublin with a postcard someone sent him with UP, up on it to take a lead. And he doubled up. Take a what? Says I liable action, says he, for £10,000. Oh hell. Says I. The bloody mongrel began to growl that put the fear of God in me, seeing something was up, but the citizen gave him a kick in the ribs. By the whole hushed, says he. Who? Says Joe. Breen, says Alf. He was in John Henry Mitton's, and then he went round to Colson Wards, and then Tom Rochford met him and sent him round to some sheriffs for a lark. Oh God, I've a pain laughing. UP, up. The long fellow gave him an eye as good as a processing. Now the bloody old lunatic is going round to Green Street to look for a G-man. When is Long John going to hang that fellow in Mountjoy? Says Joe. Bergen, says Bob Doran, waking up. Is it Alf Bergen? Yes, says Alf. Hanging. Wait till I show you. Here, Terry, give us a pony. That bloody old fool. £10,000. You should have seen Long John's eye. UP. And he started laughing. Who are you laughing at? Says Bob Doran. Is it Bergen? Hurry up, Terry boy, says Alf. Terence O'Ryan heard him and straightway brought him a crystal cup full of the foamy bone ale which the noble twin brothers Bungie of even bungered the long brew ever in their divine Levitts. Cunning is the sons of deathless Leda. For they garner the succulent berries of the hop and mass and sift and bruise and brew them, and they mix therewith sour juices and bring them us to the sacred fire, and cease not night or day from their toil, and those cunning brothers, lords of the vat. Then did you, chivalrous Terence, hand forth, as to the manner born, the nectareous beverage, and you offered the crystal cup to him that thirsted, the soul of chivalry, and beauty akin to the immortals. But he, the young chief of the O'Burgons, could ill brook to be outdone in generous deeds, but gave therefore with gracious gesture a testoon of costliest bronze. Thereon embossed in excellent smith work was seen the image of a queen of regal power, scion of the house of Brunswick, Victoria her name, her most excellent majesty, by grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland and of the British dominions beyond the sea, queen, defender of the faith, Empress of India, even she, who bore rule, of victors over many peoples, the well-beloved, for they knew and loved her from the rising of the sun to the going down thereof, the pale, the dark, the ruddy and Ethiop. What's that bloody Freemason doing, says a citizen, prowling up and down outside. What's that? Says Joe. Here you are, says Alf, chucking out the rhino. Talking about hanging, I'll show you something you never saw. Hangman's letters. Look at here. So he took a bundle of wisps of letters and envelopes out of his pocket. Are you cotting? Says I. Honest Injun, says Alf. Read them. So Joe took up the letters. Who are you laughing at? Says Bob Doran. So I saw there was going to be a bit of a dust. Bob's a queer chap when the porter's up in him, so says I just to make talk. How's William Murray those times, Alf? I don't know, says Alf. I saw him just now in Capel Street with Paddy Dignan. Only I was running after that. You up? Says Joe, throwing down the letters. With who? With Dignan, says Alf. Is it Paddy? Says Joe. Yes, says Alf. Why? Don single quote till you know he's dead. Says Joe. Paddy Dignan dead. Says Alf. Ah, says Joe. Sure, after seeing him not 5 minutes ago, says Alf, as plain as a pikestaff. Who's dead? Says Bob Doran. You saw his ghost then, says Joe, God between us and harm. What? Says Alf. Good Christ, only 5. What? And William Array with him, the two of them there near White Dow Calhoun's. What? Dignam dead? What about Dignam? Says Bob Doran. Who's talking about? That. Says Alf. He's no more dead than you are. Maybe so, says Joe. They took the liberty of burying him this morning anyhow. Patty. Says Alf. Ah, says Joe. He paid the debt of nature, God be merciful to him. Good Christ. Says Alf. Begob, he was what you might call flabbergasted. In the darkness spirit hands were felt to flutter, and when prayer by Tanner's had been directed to the proper quarter, a faint but increasing luminosity of ruby light became gradually visible, the apparition of the etheric double being particularly lifelike owing to the discharge of jivic rays from the crown of the head and face. Communication was effected through the pituitary body and also by means of the orange fire and scarlet rays emanating from the sacral region and solar plexus. Questioned by his earthman as to his whereabouts in heaven world, he stated that he was now on the path of Peoria or return, but was still submitted to trial at the hands of certain bloodthirsty entities on the lower astral levels. In reply to questions as to his first sensations in the great divide beyond, he stated that previously he had seen as in the glass darkly, but that those who had passed over had some possibilities of atomic development opened up to them. Interrogated as to whether life there resembled our experience in the flesh, he stated that he had heard from more favored beings known in the spirit that their abodes were equipped with every modern home comfort such as talafana, elevator, hot calda, with glass set, and that the highest of depths were steeped in waves of volupcy of the very purest nature. Having requested a quart of buttermilk, this was brought and evidently afforded relief. Asked if he had any message for the living, he exhorted all who were still at the wrong side of mind to acknowledge the true path, for it was reported in divinic circles that Mars and Jupiter were out for mischief on the eastern angle where the ram has power. It was inquired whether there were any special desires on the part of the defunct, and the reply was, "We greet you, friends of Earth, who are still in the body." Mind CK doesn't pile it on. It was ascertained that the reference was to Mr. Cornelius Kelleher, manager of Messrs. H.J. O'Neill's popular funeral establishment, a personal friend of the defunct, who had been responsible for the carrying out of the interment arrangements. Before departing, he requested that it should be told to his dear son Patsy that the other boot which he had been looking for was at present under the commode in the return room, and that the pair should be sent to Cullen's to be sold only as the heels were still good. He stated that this had greatly perturbed his peace of mind in the other region, and earnestly requested that his desire should be made known. Assurances were given that the matter would be attended to, and it was intimated that this had given satisfaction. He is gone from mortal haunts, O Dignam, son of our morning. Fleet was his foot on the bracken, Patrick of the beamy brow. Wail, bandwidth, with your wind, and wail, O ocean, with your whirlwind. There he is again, says the citizen, staring out. Who? Says I. Bloom, says he. He's on point duty up and down there for the last 10 minutes. And, begob, I saw his do peep in and then slide her off again. Little Alf was knocked ways. Faith, he was. Good Christ, says he. I could have sworn it was him. And says Bob Doran, with the hat on the back of his pole, lowest blackguard in Dublin when he's under the influence, who said Christ is good. I beg your parsnips, says Alf. Is that a good Christ? says Bob Doran, to take away poor little Willie Dignam. Ah, well, says Alf, trying to pass it off. He's over all his troubles. But Bob Doran shouts out at him. He's a bloody ruffian, I say, to take away poor little Willie Dignam. Terry came down and tipped him the wink to keep quiet, that they didn't want that kind of talk in a respectable licensed premises. And Bob Doran starts doing the weeps about Paddy Dignam, true as you were there. The finest man, says he, snarling, the finest purest character. The tear is bloody near your eye. Talking through his bloody hat. Fitter for him go home to the little sleepwalking bitch he married, Mooney, the bum bailiff's daughter. Mother kept a kitten in Hardwick Street, that used to be stravaging about the landings. Bantam Lines told me that was stopping there at 2 in the morning without a stitch on her, exposing her person, open to all comers, Fairfield in no favor. The noblest, the truest, says he. And he's gone, poor little Willie, poor little Paddy Dignam. And mournful and with a heavy heart he bewept the extinction of that beam of heaven. Old Dry Owen started growling again at Bloom that was skeezing round the door. Come in, come on, he won't eat you, says the citizen. So Bloom slopes in with his cod's eye on the dog and he asks Terry was Martin Cunningham there. Oh, Christ Owen, says Joe, reading one of the letters. Listen to this, will you? And he starts reading out one. 700 Street, Liverpool. To the High Sheriff of Dublin, Dublin. Honored sir, I beg to offer my services in the above-mentioned painful case. I hanged Joe Gann in Bootle Jail on the 12th of February 1900 and I hanged. Show us, Joe, says I dash. Private Arthur Chase for foul murder of Jesse Tilsit in Pentonville Prison and I was assistant with. Jesus, says I dash. Billington executed the awful murder of Toad Smith. The citizen made a grab at the letter. Hold hard, says Joe, I have a special knack of putting the noose once and he can't get out. Hoping to be favored I remain, honored sir, my terms is 5 guineas. H. Rumbold, master barber. And a barbarous bloody barbarian he is too, says the citizen. And the dirty scrawl of the rich, says Joe. Here, says he, take them to hell out of my sight, off. Hello, Bloom, says he, what we have. So they started arguing about the point, Bloom saying he wouldn't and he couldn't and excuse him no offense and all to that and then he said well he'd just take a cigar. Gob, he's a prudent member and no mistake. Give us one of your prime stinkers, Terry, says Joe. And Alf was telling us there was one chap sent in a mourning card with a black border round it. They're all barbers, says he, from the black country that would hang their own fathers for 5 quid down in traveling expenses. And he was telling us there's 2 fellas waiting below to pull his heels down when he gets the drop and choke him properly and then they chop up the rope after and sell the bits for a few bob a skull. In the dark land abide, the vengeful knights of the razor. Their deadly coil they grasp, yea, and therein they lead to a rebus whatsoever white hath done the deed of blood for I will on the wise suffer it even so saith the Lord. So they started talking about capital punishment and of course Bloom comes out with the why and the wherefore and all the codology of the business and the old dog smelling him all the time. I'm told those whys does have a sort of a queer odd up coming off them for dogs about I don't know what all deterrent effect and so forth and so on. There's one thing it hasn't a deterrent effect on, says Alf. What's that? Says Joe. The poor bugger's tool that's been hanged, says Alf. That's so, says Joe. God's truth, says Alf. I heard that from the head warder that was in Kilmainham when they hanged Joe Brady, the invincible. He told me when they cut him down after the drop I was standing up in their faces like a poker. Ruling passion strong in death, says Joe, as someone said. That can be explained by science, says Bloom. It's only a natural phenomenon, don't you see? Because kind of that. And then he starts with his jawbreakers about phenomenon in science and this phenomenon and the other phenomenon. The distinguished scientist Herr Professor Louis Goldblum inducted tendered medical evidence to the effect that the instantaneous fracture of the cervical vertebrae and consequent scission of the spinal cord would, according to the best approved tradition of medical science, be calculated to inevitably produce in the human subject a violent ganglionic stimulus of the nerve centers of the genital apparatus, thereby causing the elastic pores of the corpora cavernosa to rapidly dilate in such a way as to instantaneously facilitate the flow of blood to that part of the human anatomy known as the penis or male organ, resulting in the phenomenon which has been denominated by the faculty of more blood upwards and outwards philoprogenitive erection and articula mortis predominitionem capitis. So of course the citizen was only waiting for the wink of the word, and he starts gassing out of him about the Invincibles in the Ilgard and the men of 67, and he fears to speak of Nantiate and Joe with him about all the fellows that were having drawn him transported for the cause by drumhead court-martial in New Ireland, and knew this, that and the other. Talking about New Ireland, he ought to go and get a new dog, so he ought. Mangy ravenous brute sniffing and sneezing all round the place and scratching his scabs. And round he goes to Bob Doran that was standing off a half one sucking up for what he could get. So of course Bob Doran starts doing the bloody fool with him. Give us the paw. Give the paw, doggy. Good old doggy. Give the paw here. Give us the paw. Era, bloody end to the paw he'd pawn out trying to keep him from tumbling off the bloody stool atop of the bloody old dog, and he talking all kinds of drivel about training by kindness and thoroughbred dog and intelligent dog, give you the bloody pip. Then he starts scraping a few bits of old biscuit out of the bottom of Jacob's tin he told Terry to bring. Gob. He galloped it down like old boots and his tongue hanging out of him a yard long for more. Near 8 to 10 in all, hunger bloody mongrel. And the citizen and Bloom having an argument about the point, the brothers Shears and Wolf Tone beyond on Arbor Hill and Robert Emmett and Die for Your Country, the Tommy Moore touch about Sarah Curran and She's Far from the Land. And Bloom, of course, with his knock-em-down cigar putting on swank with his lardy face. Phenomenon. The fat heap he married is a nice old phenomenon with a back on her like a bellowy. Time they were stopping up in the City Arms, Pisserbert told me there was an old one there with a cracked letterman of a nephew in Bloom trying to get the soft side of her doing the mollycoddle playing basic to come in for a bit of the wampum in her will and not eating meat of a Friday because the old one was always thumping her craw and taking the loud out for a walk. And one time he led him the rounds of Dublin, and, by the holy farmer, he never cried crack till he brought him home as drunk as a boiled owl, and he said he'd built to teach him the evils of alcohol and buy herrings, if the 30 women didn't near roast him. It's the queer story, the old one, Bloom's wife and Mrs. O'Dowd that kept the hotel. Jesus, I had to laugh at Pisserbert taking them off chewing the fat. And Bloom with his but don't you see. And but on the other hand, and sure, more betoken, the lout I'm told was in Powers after, the blenders, round in Cope Street going home footless in a cab 5 times in the week after drinking his way through all the samples in the bloody establishment. Phenomenon. The memory of the dead, says the citizen taking up his pint glass and glaring at Bloom. Ah, eh, says Joe. You don't grasp my point, says Bloom. What I mean is sin, says the citizen. Sinn Fein am Hain. The friends we love are by our side and the foes we hate before us. The last farewell was affecting in the extreme. From the belfries far and near, the funereal death bell tolled unceasingly, while all around the gloomy precincts rolled the ominous warning of 100 muffled drums, punctuated by the hollow booming of pieces of ordnance. The deafening claps of thunder and the dazzling flashes of lightning which lit up the ghastly scene testified that the artillery of heaven had lent its supernatural pomp to the already gruesome spectacle. A torrential rain poured down from the floodgates of the angry heavens upon the bared heads of the assembled multitude, which numbered at the lowest computation 500,000 persons. A posse of Dublin Metropolitan Police, superintended by the Chief Commissioner in person, maintained order in the vast throng for whom the York Street Brass and Reed Band whiled away the intervening time by admirably rendering on their black-draped instruments the matchless melody endeared to us from the cradle by Speranza's plaintive muse. Special quick excursion trains and upholstered charabancs had been provided for the comfort of our country cousins, of whom there were large contingents. Considerable amusement was caused by the favorite Dublin street singers LNHN and MLLGN, who sang the night before Larry was stretched in their usual mirth-provoking fashion. Our two inimitable drolls did roaring trade with their broadsheets among lovers of the comedy element, and nobody who has a corner in his heart for real Irish fun without vulgarity would grudge them their hard-earned pennies. The children of the male and female foundling hospital who thronged the windows overlooking the scene were delighted with this unexpected addition to the day's entertainment, and a word of praise is due to the little sisters of the poor for their excellent idea of affording the poor fatherless and motherless children a genuinely instructive treat. The vice-regal hussar party, which included many well-known ladies, was chaperoned by their excellencies to the most favorable positions on the grandstand, while the picturesque foreign delegation known as the Friends of the Emerald Isle was accommodated on a tribune directly opposite. The delegation, presenting full force, consisted of Commendatore Besabacci Binano Benoni, the semi-paralyzed don of the party, who had to be assisted to his seat by the aid of a powerful steam crane, Monsieur Pierre Paul Petitet Patent, the Grand Joker Vladimir Polka-Thankerchev, the Arch-Joker Leopold Rudolph von Schwanzenbach-Holdenthaler, Kansas Murder Viragaki Sashoni Petropoulos, the Hiram Y. Bomb Boost, Count A. Thanatos Karamela Pulos, Alibaba Bakshish Rahat Locum Effendi, Senor Hidalgo Caballero Don Picadillo y Palabras y Paternoster de la Malor de la Malaria, Poco Poco Harakiri, Hai Hung Chang, Olaf Gumberkadelson, Menhir Trick Van Trumps, Pan Poliex Risky, Gusepon PRHKLSDR Krachina Burchizich, Boris Hupenkopf, Herr House Director President Hans Queklis Orly, National Gymnasium Museum Sanatorium and Suspensorium Ordinary Privat Docent General Historia Special Professor Dr. Kriegfried Allgemein. All the delegates without exception expressed themselves in the strongest possible heterogeneous terms concerning the nameless barbarity which they had been called upon to witness. An animated altercation, in which all took part, ensued among the FOTI as to whether the 8th or the 9th of March was the correct date of the birth of Ireland's patron saint. In the course of the argument, cannonballs, scimitars, boomerangs, blunderbusses, stink pots, meat choppers, umbrellas, catapults, knuckle dusters, sandbags, lumps of pig iron were resorted to, and blows were freely exchanged. The Baber policeman, Constable McFadden, summoned by special courier from Booterstown, quickly restored order and with lightning promptitude proposed the 17th of the month as a solution equally honorable for both contending parties. The ready-witted Ninefooter's suggestion at once appealed to all and was unanimously accepted. Constable McFadden was heartily congratulated by all the FOTI, several of whom were bleeding profusely. Commendatore Benoni having been extricated from underneath the presidential armchair, It was explained by his legal advisor Avocado Pagamimi that the various articles secreted in his 30 pockets had been abstracted by him during the affray from the pockets of his junior colleagues in the hope of bringing them to their senses. The objects, which included several hundred ladies' and gentlemen's gold and silver watches, were promptly restored to their rightful owners and general harmony reigned supreme. Quietly, unassumingly Rumbold stepped onto the scaffold in faultless morning dress and wearing his favorite flower, the gladiolus cruentus. He announced his presence by that gentle Rumboldian cough which so many have tried, unsuccessfully, to imitate short, painstaking yet withal so characteristic of the man. The arrival of the world-renowned headsman was greeted by a roar of acclamation from the huge concourse, the vice-regal ladies waving their handkerchiefs in their excitement, while the even more excitable foreign delegates cheered vociferously in a medley of cries: Hawk, Banzai, Elgin, Zavio, Chun-Chin, Polychronia, Hafip, Vive, Allah, amid which the ringing Aviva of the delegate of the land of song, a high double effort calling those piercingly lovely notes with which the eunuch Katalani Beglamort, our great-great-grandmothers, was easily distinguishable. It was exactly 17 o'clock. The signal for prayer was then promptly given by megaphone, and in an instant all heads were bared. The commendatory's patriarchal sombrero, which has been in the possession of his family since the revolution of Ranzi, being removed by his medical advisor and attendants, Dr. Pippi. The learned prelate who administered the last comforts of holy religion to the hero martyr when about to pay the death penalty knelt in a most Christian spirit in a pool of rainwater, his cassock above his hoary head, and offered up to the throne of grace fervent prayers of supplication. Hand by the block stood the grim figure of the executioner, his visage being concealed in a 10-gallon pot with two circular perforated apertures through which his eyes glowered furiously. As he awaited the fatal signal, he tested the edge of his horrible weapon by honing it upon his brawny forearm, or decapitated in rapid succession a flock of sheep which had been provided by the admirers of his fell but necessary office. On a handsome mahogany table near him were neatly arranged the quartering knife, the various finely tempered disaboweling appliances, specially supplied by the world-famous firm of cutlers, Messrs. John Round & Sons, Sheffield, a terracotta saucepan for the reception of the duodenum, colon, blind intestine and appendix, etc., when successfully extracted, in two commodious milk jugs destined to receive the most precious blood of the most precious victim. The hostess steward of the amalgamated cats and dogs home was in attendance to convey these vessels when replenished to that beneficent institution. Quite an excellent repast consisting of rushers and eggs, fried steak and onions, done to an archetti, delicious hot breakfast rolls and invigorating tea had been considerately provided by the authorities for the consumption of the central figure of the tragedy, who was in capital spirits when prepared for death and evinced the keenest interest in the proceedings from beginning to end. But he, with an abnegation rare in these our times, rose nobly to the occasion and expressed the dying wish, immediately acceded to, that the meal should be divided in equal parts among the members of the sick and indigent room-keepers' association as a token of his regard and esteem. The neck and non-plus ultra of emotion were reached when the blushing bride-elect burst her way through the serried ranks of the bystanders and flung herself upon the muscular bosom of him who was about to be launched into eternity for her sake. The hero folded her willowy form in a loving embrace, murmuring fondly, "Sheila, my own." Encouraged by this use of her Christian name, she kissed passionately all the various suitable areas of his person which the decencies of prison garb permitted her ardor to reach. She swore to him as they mingled the salt streams of their tears that she would ever cherish his memory, that she would never forget her hero boy who went to his death with a song on his lips as if he were going to a hermitage in Clontarf Park. She brought back to his recollection the happy days of blissful childhood together on the banks of Andelphi, when they had indulged in the innocent pastimes of the young and, oblivious of the dreadful present, they both laughed heartily, all the spectators, including the venerable pastor, joining in the general merriment. That monster audience simply rocked with delight. But Anne and they were overcome with grief and clasped their hands for the last time. A fresh torrent of tears burst from their lacrimal ducts, and the vast concourse of people, touched to the inmost core, broke into heart-rending sobs, not the least affected being the aged prebendary himself. Big strong men, officers of the peace and genial giants of the Royal Irish Constabulary, were making frank use of their handkerchiefs, and it is safe to say that there was not a dry eye in that record assemblage. A most romantic incident occurred when a handsome young Oxford graduate, noted for his chivalry towards the fair sex, stepped forward and, presenting his visiting card, bank book and genealogical tree, solicited the hand of the hapless young lady, requesting her to name the day, and was accepted on the spot. Every lady in the audience was presented with a tasteful souvenir of the occasion in the shape of a skull and crossbones brooch, a timely and generous act which evoked a fresh outburst of emotion, and when the gallant young Oxonian, the bearer, by the way, of one of the most timid-honored names in Albion's history, placed on the finger of his blushing fiancée an expensive engagement ring with emeralds set in the form of a free-leaved shamrock, the excitement knew no bounds. Nay, even the stir provost marshal, Lieutenant Colonel Tompkin Maxwell Frenchman Tomlinson, who presided on the sad occasion, he who had blown a considerable number of sepoys from the cannon without flinching, could not now restrain his natural emotion. With his mailed gauntlet he brushed away a furtive tear and was overheard, by those privileged burghers who happened to be in his immediate entourage, to murmur to himself in a faltering undertone, "God blimey if she ain't a clinker, that the bleeding tart. Blimey it makes me kind of bleeding cry, straight, it does, when I sees her, cause I thinks of my old master what's waiting for me down Limehouse way." So then the citizen begins talking about the Irish language in the corporation meeting and all to that, and the Shoneynes that can't speak their own language and Joe chipping in because he stuck someone for a quid and Bloom putting in his old goo with his tuppenny stump that he cadged off of Joe, and talking about the Gaelic leaving the anti-treating leave and drink, the curse of Ireland. Anti-treating is about the size of it. Gob, he'd let you pour all manner of drink down his throat till the Lord would call him before you'd ever see the froth of his pipe.